What's going on, guys? National Master James Canty III here, and today we are covering the Black Lion, the Simon Williams Black Lion. Very aggressive PHILIDOR. It's a monster opening, honestly, and it will catch your opponents off guard, guaranteed, if you're not playing it. Now, if you do play it wrong, you will get wiped off the board, but at the same time, if you play it correctly, your opponent's getting wiped off the board. So let's get right into it, guys. Here we go. E4. D6. So we start in this fashion here, or in this move order, because this is just the best way to go. Usually you're playing in a PHILIDOR fashion, but there's a move order that you want to start with, and it starts with D6. So after D6, D4 is on the board. Very simple move. They just make sure that of course they grab a center, and then if you're going to give up the center, you should take it, and absolutely they do. So E4 and D4 is on the board. Black plays knight f6 to immediately put some pressure onto white's position, or white's center here, and they're just going to defend it with knight c3 or bishop d3. Knight c3 is the standard here. You have knight to d7, which is our move, but you also have e5. So if you like this fashion, you want to go to endgames fast, this is the way to do it. And let's just take a look at this real quick. This is not a discouraging position. Don't get this mixed up or think that this is a bad position for black, because it's definitely wrong. It's actually a very good position for black. And let's talk about this for a minute. Now, let's say a move like bishop to g5. If I'm playing white here, this is usually what I would do. Castle queenside and play knight d5. But if black knows what he's doing here, let's take a look at this pawn structure right here. These pawns in the Black Lion, this is one of the structures you should always remember and you should always look to have, is c6 and e5. Out of 4 squares in the center, we have influence on 3 of them. We have a pawn on 1, influence here, influence here. On the contrary, white only has 2. So with that being said, it's very, very dynamic, as weird as the center looks here, but these pawns are very, very strong. So after castle's queenside with check, king to c7, there's no threats, you can't do anything. And I'm going to just play bishop d6, knight d7, finish my development, have a great game here actually. And the knight goes to c5, sometimes back to e6 and over to d4. And sometimes you'll be surprised that black even comes back and wins these games, but he's already equal, to say the least. So we don't play the e5 because we just don't want to go to endgame so quickly. We're going to go knight to d7, but we're preparing e5. Next move is usually knight f3, standard stuff. Put the knights out and just develop the pieces. So after knight to f3, we do thrust with e5 now. Remember, the pawn structure we're going for is c6 and e5. So they can capture, which is a little bit weird. We still get c6 and e5 in. It also makes our bishop a little bit more aggressive. But for teaching purposes here, we're just not going to capture here right now. We're going to keep the tension in the center and play bishop to c4. After bishop c4, this is automatically a threat. Something is going to happen here. They're trying to play knight to g5, right? So you could go bishop to e7, which is probably the best move here. You can also play h6. I like to play bishop e7. So if knight g5 happens, I castle and we get out of the way. They also have the caveman version, which is bishop takes f7. This is crazy. Let's just show this line on the screen so you guys, just in case this happens to you, you know what to do. King takes, knight to g5, check. After knight g5, if you go king e8, there's knight e6, and your queen is now trapped. That's gross. How about king to f8? Same thing. Check. That's gross. Oh my goodness. Why do we even play this, right? King g8, and you're fine. What do you mean? Watch this. Knight e6, hitting the queen. Queen e8. This is forced, by the way. Knight takes. There's a rook hanging. So we just go queen g6 casually and get out of the way. Knight takes the rook. Queen takes g2. We have our own counterplay for him to worry about now. Rook to f1. Pawn takes d4. Very, very strong stuff. This is hanging. They usually take this back. Knight goes to e5. Knight f3 is a threat. Knight g4. Bishop h4. Let's say f4 happens. If f4 happens, we can play knight g4 right now. And bishop h4 is monstrous. This is ridiculous. So if they play f3, well, then that's just another move. We play knight h5 and bishop h4 and bishop h3. Bishops everywhere. But this is a very advanced lion here. Very advanced black lion. Extremely wild. They call it the caveman variation. But bishop takes f7 is a move. Now, usually what they'll do is actually just castle. And then after castle, then we go h6 here. We're stopping anything from coming into g5. And it's just a very nice position to have. Very nice position. They're thinking we're going to castle. I promise you that. But watch this. Bishop e3 or h3 are usually moves. Let's just go with h3. And now we finish up with the rest of the moves for the lion here. After h3, we need to go c6. Remember, this is the pawn structure we always go for. c6 or e5. Sometimes moves are reversible, but you need to be careful if knight g5 and the bishop's here. Because if we go back a few moves and we play c6, we could be in trouble. if our bishop's not on e7. So like bishop c4, you play c6, knight g5, you're in a lot of trouble. You could play d5 here, and you might be playing tactically, but you have allowed this to happen. So you got to watch out for that. So you need to be able to play bishop e7 ASAP. So let's go back here. Okay, bishop c4, bishop e7. Not knight g5. Let's go with castles. Castles, h6. h6, h3, c6. Now they got bishop e3 is a move. a4 is a move. Both of these are moves here. But we're going to cover my favorite lion here, which is what he calls the risky lion, where you can get this setup. Literally, you can play this same setup against almost anything that white plays. b3 move 1, a4 move 1, d4 move 1. It don't matter what they play, move 1. You can do this setup. Now, of course, the move order may be slightly different, and they might do some things that may be slightly different, but the objective and the ideas are still the same. c6, and then after c6, you have a4 as a move, but you also have standard bishop to e3. So we're going to just go here and try and do what most people do. They're just going to try to double on the file and do some things. So after bishop to e7, we actually go queen c7. Queen to d2, following up with rook to d1, and then we go g5. There it is. G5 is on the board. We don't even castle. They thought you was going to castle, which you absolutely could castle in this position. That is what he calls the tame lion, which is very, very just calm. You can castle. But I'm not trying to play that. I'm trying to go for mate ASAP. So I play g5 right now. Now g5 is on the board, followed by g4, and it's about to get crazy. Let's say captures, right? Capture, capture, and rook d1. Okay, looking at this file, I love explaining this to students a lot. If you look at this file, I'm actually going to play knight f8 here. You also have g4. g4 is the best move, but knight f8 is also an alternative, and I'll show you both. But if knight f8 happens, count how many squares on this file that the pieces can go to, undefended. Or actually, undefended squares, or defended squares, sorry. Any square that this queen and rook can go to on this file. And if you say 1 is the answer, that is absolutely correct. They can't go here. They can't go here. This is like a dead file. It's crazy, but they got a nice position. Like all the pieces are developed. This is what you want. But he can't do anything but like queen to d3. It's just such an awesome game. So something as simple as like, what do you actually do here? Maybe b3, I don't know. b3, knight to g6 is swinging over. Maybe a4, gain a little bit more space here. You have knight f4, and this is what I used to play a lot. I would always put my knight on f4, and they usually take it. And then we're going to play rook to g8 is coming next. So maybe knight e2, not even sure what that does. Rook to g8, and we're hitting him right here. Bishop takes h3 is definitely in the air. If king h1, we're going to play rook g7, bishop d7, walk the king this way, or even castle queenside. So something as simple as what do you even do is let's play it here, because like you have to do something. Bishop d7, like where do you even move pieces? King h2, c3, c3. Let's try b4, maybe b5. Castle queenside, and then we're going to double the rooks on the file here. And it's a lot of pressure. Very, very fun for black to play here as we're calling all the shots. Now, that's the knight f4 way to do it. The newer way, and what Simon recommends actually, is g4 in this position. So in g4, pawn takes, you play knight takes g4. Knight takes g4 is here. The next plan is going to be pushing this pawn and also playing rook to g8. Followed by knight f8, knight g6, knight f4. It gets extremely difficult here for the white pieces. And just so you know, guys, there's nothing to capture. Like, he clarified that in the center very early when he played d takes e5. So in these d takes e5 situations, like, where's that? Here. D takes e5, and let's go back one move. When you play d takes e5, there's nothing to worry about, honestly, ever, because everything's clarified. There's nothing to capture anymore, and the pawns are extremely strong here in the center. Remember, it starts with this, but let's say he doesn't capture, right? Let's go back and say he just never captures the pawn. So if he doesn't after g5, then they can still do the same stuff. Rook d1, g4 takes, knight takes, and it's a variation of the same. You want to keep stuff closed as possible, because if you start opening up the center, then these bishops become great, and your king is still in the center. King safety will usually be on f8, which is kind of weird in this position, but king safety usually is on f8 when the pawn is on g5. So going back a move here, when the pawn's on g5, king safety is usually f8. Sometimes there's lines where you walk your king all the way over here first, then we play rook g8, or actually the rook's already on g8, so something like this, bringing the king over this way, and then playing g4 after the king's a little bit safer, if that's what you feel you should do. Now, one thing to note is you do want to make sure that you pay attention to this pawn, because it is slightly weak. So sometimes knight f8, followed by bishop to e6. So let's make a move. Knight f8 and bishop e6 is a thing. But when you, the idea here, guys, this could go so many ways. So you should get this in your practice games, is putting a rook here on g8. The knight goes to g6. You have to play a timely g4 at the right moment, and putting the knight on f4, or putting the knight on f4 without playing g4 and just bullying this file. So two ways to play it. I recommend you play as many times as you can and get the experience in this opening, because it is not easy, for number one, but it also will be very rewarding, and it throws your opponent off so many times because this is a standard setup that they play. I mean, you develop your pieces. Like, what else do you do here? And black's thinking that you're actually going, or white's thinking that you're going to castle. You can even play c6 here, but I prefer h6. h6 and then h3 or something, usually bishop e3 or h3. But of course, they don't want to go bishop e3 because knight g4. So h3 is usually the standard here. c6, bishop e3, queen c7, queen out the way, and g5. And there it is. g4 is coming, or knight f8, knight g6, knight f4. Of course, rook g8's in the way. The bishop's coming. Look at all these arrows, right? It gets ridiculous over here. I've had very good success with this, even before I started playing, even before I had some real good theory on it like I do now. Now, of course, this is just a side weapon that I use now because I play other things, but this is something that, of course, if you're you know, looking for something new, looking for something aggressive, and you want to give it a try, I highly recommend you look at this. It's called The Black Lion by Simon Williams. Black Lion. Okay, if you need some help on figuring it out, just shoot me a message or answer in the comments there, and we'll get it to you. But this is one of my favorite openings. It's very aggressive, and it throws people off all the time. Oh, it works great in bullet games. It works great in blitz games. Over the board chess too, even he has grandmaster wins. Even Richard Rapport, who's a strong grandmaster, a younger guy. He's actually he plays it. And he's played it a few times in the database after looking at some games there. So pretty strong stuff, guys. This is the Black Lion today. So I wanted to show you again briefly from the beginning here. This is the main setup. The main setup is this here, knight f6. Okay, after knight to c3, there's knight d7. After knight d7, usually knight f3. No matter what, not always no matter what, you need to be aware of how they do the move order. It might be something different. By the way, if they do play f4, that is a move. You still play e5. I'm just going to show this really quickly. So you still play e5. And if they play knight f3, then we're going to capture. If they take with the queen, we're going to play c6 and d5 and put the bishop on c5. If they take with the knight, play g6 and bishop g7, castles, rook e8, knight c5, and bully this pawn. You want to watch this video like 10 times. Write this plan down, whatever you got to do, because that is the plan for this one. Now, the usual, though, is knight f3, and then we play e5. And c6, and this is how it usually is played. Bishop e7, h6, rook e1, c6, h3, g5, bishop e3, g4, takes, knight takes. Very nice. Or we could swing around and play knight f8 first, and then play g4 and knight to g6, knight f4, rook g8. This is the Black Lion, and you learn it here today with the Jedi. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you put the comments under the video if you like this video, or if this is something that you're going to try. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really will appreciate that. Watch the other videos on the channel and support as much as you can. I really appreciate you guys being at the channel. So thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video.